Welcome back to another episode of Trade Trees. I'm Steve Dangle, and it's not July anymore. The last 7 Trade Tree videos you've seen were filmed in July, but we've run out of those, so it's time to film new ones. But I'm using that as a transition. You know one of the many hockey things that happened this past July? The draft! So ahead of this Trade Tree, let me pose a very simple question to you, because the title would have already given away what this Trade Tree is. Would you rather your team trade up in the draft or down? There's been a lot of research over the past few years that after the first 10 or 15 picks in the draft, it's a bit of a crapshoot as to whether or not a player will play in the NHL, have a sustainable career of 200 plus games, or be a star. So if that's the case, then why not get as many picks as possible? So for example, let's say you have the 40th overall pick. That's a second round pick. But then a team comes up to you and says, hey, give us that pick and we'll give you the 45th pick and the 75th pick. The argument is that the odds of hitting on a draft pick at 40th overall is about the same as 75th, let alone 45th. And for that reason, you might as well take all the picks you can. Well, how about this scenario? I'll give you the 13th overall pick and a second and a third, but it's gonna cost you the 9th overall pick. I'll stop throwing numbers at you and just get to the trade tree. Here's all that matters. No matter what picks you have in the draft, you have to know what you're doing. And on draft day, every team thinks they got a big giant brain like this. On this trade tree, we'll find out who actually does. This is the Logan Couture trade tree between the San Jose Sharks and the St. Louis Blues. So, whose fault was this trade? Well, as it is with many things, the Leafs! The Toronto Maple Leafs gave the San Jose Sharks a first-round pick in 2007, 13th overall, as part of the package to bring Vesa Toskala to Toronto. That's a thing that happened, but this is not the Vesa Toskala trade tree. We're here to talk about the Sharks and Blues. One thing we've talked about in the past with trade trees where teams acquire an extra pick, some other team's pick, it's burning a hole in their pocket. They can't wait to trade that thing. It's like finding $100 in the street. What are you gonna do? Take it straight to the bank and invest it, or spend it on something stupid? In this case, the Sharks did trade the pick, but they didn't do it flippantly. They did it with purpose. They wanted to move up in the draft. So they made a deal with the St. Louis Blues that goes as follows. The San Jose Sharks acquire the 9th overall pick in 2007. They crack the top 10, but they only move up 4 spots, and the St. Louis Blues acquire the 13th overall pick, the 44th overall pick, that's a second rounder, and the 87th overall pick, that's a third. So based on the conversation that we had at the beginning of this video, that seems like a steep price to move up 4 spots. A second and a third to move up 4 spots in the draft? So is this a good move or a bad move? Again, you have to know what you're doing. And in 2007, the San Jose Sharks understood the assignment. With the 9th overall pick in 2007, the San Jose Sharks select their current captain, Logan Couture. So a little spoiler here, this is where the trade tree ends on the San Jose side because they never traded Logan Couture, they still have him, and here's why. Yeah, sure, there were growing pains. That happens for every young player in the NHL. Remember Pavel Datsyuk absolutely breaking his ankles. Maybe it's a little bit of the fact that he plays in San Jose. I knew Logan Couture was good. I didn't know he was this good. Here are the simple stats. Logan Couture has played 768 NHL games, all of them with the San Jose Sharks. 273 goals, 304 assists, 577 points. That is 0.75 points per game, or over an 82-game season, a pace of roughly 62 points a game, and that's per season. That's over Couture's entire career, keeping in mind he got drafted 14 years ago. Now, you might be saying to yourself, oh, 62 points, yeah, that's good, it's good, it's good. But like, it's not that good, Steve. Like, come on. A few things jumped off the page for me, though, the more I looked into his career. Some players get the tag playoff performer, but it often comes with winning the Stanley Cup. If you win the Stanley Cup and you were good during that run, I'm convinced you could be garbage for the rest of your career and people will still call you up, oh, he's a playoff performer. Unfortunately for Logan Couture, the San Jose Sharks have never won a Stanley Cup and therefore he has never won a Stanley Cup, but it is not for lack of trying. In 116 Stanley Cup playoff games, Logan Couture has 48 goals, 53 assists for 101 points. That is 0.87 points per game, or a 71 point over 82 game average. For Logan Couture, an offensively gifted player, and everyone knows that, and everyone is keying in on him during the Stanley Cup playoffs, his numbers go up. During the 2016 playoffs, when the Sharks made it all the way to the Stanley Cup final, only to fall to the Pittsburgh Penguins, Couture had 30 points in 24 games. If the Sharks win that thing, he's getting the Conn Smythe. He also had 20 points in 20 games when the Sharks went to the conference final in 2019, only to fall to the Blues. That's kind of funny it happened to the Blues. I didn't pick up on that in my research. Couture struggled in his first foray in the Stanley Cup playoffs as a rookie. In 15 games, he only had 4 points. If you exclude his rookie year, Logan Couture scores at 0.96 points per game in the Stanley Cup playoffs in his career. He is a playoff beast. All the while, even though he's played 768 career regular season games, he's only got 214 penalty minutes. And in 116 playoff games, he's only got 31 penalty minutes. Some rough math, but that means Logan Couture is only taking a minor penalty once every 7 or 8 games. Obviously, an unbelievable player. Now, the St. Louis Blues get 3 picks in this trade tree, a first, a second, and a third. Will those picks add up to something better than Logan Couture for the Sharks? Let's take a look. And interestingly, to start, each one of these picks was actually used by the Blues. They didn't flip any of them. With the first round pick, 13th overall, the St. Louis Blues select Lars Eller. With the second round pick, 44th overall, the Blues select Aaron Palushai. And with the third round pick, 87th overall, the Blues select Ian Schultz. Now, remember I said the Blues picked all of these players? They used all these picks. They didn't flip any of them. Combined games for the St. Louis Blues between Lars Eller, Aaron Palushai, and Ian Schultz, 7. They played 7 games as a Blue. And by they, I mean Lars Eller played all of them. In June 2010, the Blues packaged Eller along with Ian Schultz in a deal that was actually pretty spicy if you remember the moment of 2010. Because you might remember this Montreal Canadiens team unexpectedly making a ruckus in the playoffs. Stop me if that sounds familiar. Because what happened in the 2010 playoffs? Yes, the Blackhawks win their first of 3 in 6 years, but what happened in the East? The Eastern Conference Final was a 7-8 battle, back when there was a 7-8 battle, between the Montreal Canadiens and the Philadelphia Flyers. Well, how did the Habs get there? In order to make the third round, they had to go through the Pittsburgh Penguins and Sidney Crosby's reigning Stanley Cup champions and the unstoppable force that was Alexander Ovechkin and the Washington Capitals. Somehow, the Habs did it. How? Jaroslav Halak. This dude was unbelievable, unbeatable in the 2010 Stanley Cup playoffs, especially in those first 2 rounds. They were literally vandalizing stop signs in Quebec to say Halak instead of arrête, which is stop. I took French up to grade 10 and retained nearly nothing, but I do remember that. But forget the stop signs. He was so good that some people were saying he was not the goalie the Habs should have traded. Because they got this guy, Jaroslav Halak. He's a monster. We just saw him in the playoffs. We should stick with the monster. But there is this kid who could be pretty good. I don't know. He was pretty good in the minors. And at the end of the day, the Habs choose to trade Jaroslav Halak instead of that kid, Carey Price. Can you imagine if that decision was made differently? I guess we'll never know. Anyway, to get a goalie that good as Jaroslav Halak was in 2010, the Blues had to pony up. The trade was Lars Eller, a gifted forward drafted 13th overall in 2007, and Ian Schultz, a gifted defenseman drafted in the 3rd round of 2008. Something I want to clarify. Some people are going to be like, all right, go down the Habs rabbit hole here. No, this trade tree is between the Blues and the Sharks. I did a video on the Ryan O'Reilly trade tree between the Avalanche and the Sabres, and people were like, talk about the Islanders! I'm not talking about the Islanders right now! One day we can isolate that trade tree and look at it because it is actually a pretty interesting one, but right now, let's just look at the Blues and Sharks, specifically the Blues. So, they get Jaroslav Halak. Was it worth it? Was he good? The answer was Jaroslav Halak good in the regular season for the St. Louis Blues? Heck yeah! He had a record of 83, 47, and 19 with a .916 save percentage. That's a spicy meatball. He played two playoff games as a member of the Blues. The following is an examination of goalies and how they don't make sense. In Halak's first season with the St. Louis Blues, he was their starter, no doubt about it. Ty Conklin was his backup. Ben Bishop, a young Ben Bishop, played a few games too. The next season, Jaroslav Halak had a stellar .925 save percentage, which would have made him the clear-cut starter for sure, right? Wrong, because he was a tandem goalie with Brian Elliott, who had a .940 in 38 games. Yes, that Brian Elliott. Yes, a .940. 940. Here's where it falls apart the next season. In 24 games, Brian Elliott had a .907. Ooh, that's not as good. In 15 games, Jake Allen had a .905. Ooh, that's not great either. In 16 games, Jaroslav Halak had a very tough .899. But the following season, he bounced back. He had a .917. He was quite good. But again, was a shade behind Brian Elliott at a .922. The best years of Elliott's career were in St. Louis. But the Blues, heading into the playoffs in 2014, go, you know what? We got to pony up here and we got to get a real number one goalie. And there was a number one goalie available. The youngins might not get it as much, but who remembers how good Ryan Miller was for a moment in time, especially with Team USA and especially with the Buffalo Sabres. The Blues ponied up and they ponied up big to get him. The trade was Jaroslav Halak plus Chris Stewart plus William Carrier, who had just been selected in the second round in the prior draft, a first-round pick in 2015, a third-round pick in 2016. All of that went to Buffalo in exchange for goalie Ryan Miller and antagonist forward Steve Ott. To recap, they gave up a first-round pick, a third-round pick, a dude who had just been picked in the second round, Chris Stewart, who was a massive hard-hitting power forward with goal-scoring potential, and Jaroslav Halak, who maybe wasn't 2010 Jaroslav Halak, but he was still a really good goalie. If you're trading all that, you better get something great in return. You want great? How about this? In 40 games with the Buffalo Sabres that season, in the 13-14 season, 40 games, Ryan Miller had a .923 save percentage. He was stellar. But it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. We got him for the playoffs. Who cares how he is in the regular season? We got him for the playoffs. And in the playoffs, he was 2-4 with an .897 save percentage. And then he walked. Once again, the Blues gave up a first-round pick, a third-round pick, a dude who had just been picked in the second round, a power forward, and Jaroslav Halak for a goalie who got eliminated in the first round with a sub-900 save percentage. What's that? Oh, what about Steve Ott? Well, he played 122 regular season games with the Blues. That's not nothing. Only scored 3 goals. I'm not gonna lie, I had to double check that. Like, I went to 3 different websites. I thought that has to be wrong. 3 goals, 14 assists for 17 points in 122 games. Oh, and in the playoffs, 21 games played. No goals, 3 assists. Yes, I know Steve Ott wasn't there to win the Rocket Richard Trophy. He was there to annoy you to the umpteenth degree, but you heard the package that the Blues gave up, right? What makes this trade a true catastrophe for the Blues is that Steve Ott, between him and Ryan Miller, was the best part. So the Blues traded Lars Eller and Ian Schultz for Jaroslav Halak. That was good. What followed was bad. It definitely didn't add up to the value of Logan Couture. But Blues fans, I'm going to give you a little detail that's going to make you go, oh, because there's still one pick remaining. Aaron Polishai, a forward who was picked 44th overall in 2007 by the Blues, he was flipped to Montreal as well. Popular trade partners, them. In a swap of forwards, the Blues sent Polishai to the Habs in exchange for another forward Matt D'Agostini. I will say this, unequivocally, the Blues won this trade. In 160 games with the Blues, D'Agostini had 66 points, which isn't mind-blowing, but he had more points with the Blues than Polishai had NHL games played in his entire career. And down the line, D'Agostini was traded. It was a pretty nothing trade too. D'Agostini and a 7th round pick in 2015 were sent to the New Jersey Devils in exchange for a 5th round pick in 2015, 127th overall to be specific. So that's interesting. That's the Blues moving up in the draft, not just using a pick, but also a player. With that 5th round pick that the Blues got from the Devils, they selected 6'4" defenseman Nico Mikkola. And if that name sounds familiar, that's because he's on the Blues. He had a cup of coffee with the Blues in the season that was cut short due to COVID, but last year, he was straight up on the Blues. He had 30 games played with the St. Louis Blues on their decor last year. He scored his first NHL goal, threw in a couple assists. He only played 4 playoff games, but he had an assist there too. The St. Louis Blues are still getting something. They have a guy on their team from this Logan Couture trade tree. Oh wait, the Sharks still have Logan Couture. So with this trade tree, who do you think what? No, I'm not even gonna ask you that question. The Sharks rule this trade tree with the Blues. But remember I said you gotta know what you're doing? All these trades are bets. Every trade is a bet. You are making a bet that the player you are getting is good, or the picks you get will help your team, etc., etc. Ryan Miller in 2014 was one of the best goalies in hockey. The Blues could have easily gotten him, gotten the Ryan Miller they expected, and who knows, instead of the Kings in 2014, they could have gone on and won the Stanley Cup. And what happened? What happened? Did Ryan Miller forget how to play hockey? No! After that, he went on to play in Vancouver, and he was good there. He had some good seasons in Anaheim as well. The Blues made a bet, a huge bet, that Ryan Miller would be great for them, and he wasn't. They lost that bet. And even though they do have a player on their roster who they got from this trade tree, even though Jaroslav Halak was pretty good for them for a period of time, ooh, what would the St. Louis Blues be with Logan Couture? That being said, at the end of the day, the St. Louis Blues do have something that the San Jose Sharks don't: a Stanley Cup. I'm curious to know what your thoughts are on this one. Leave a comment in the comment box down below. What do you think about moving up or moving down in the draft, and what happened here? But for now, that is it for this one. Thank you very much for watching. Click like if you liked this video. Click subscribe if you really liked it. Tell all your friends. More trade trees coming at you.